Next Gen Web is continuing its coverage from Supernova 2009, and we're very lucky to be joined by Nicol Turner-Lee, formerly with One Economy,
Yes.
and now running the show at the Joint Center.
Well,
maybe not running the show,
right?
but Nicol, we appreciate you joining us
Thank
today. Talk to us a little bit about the panel you were on today, highlighting the FCC's National Broadband Plan, and you talked about a few things that you would share with them in terms of direction and are they on the right track, and was wondering if you could elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's really important. Thank you too, also for Next Gen Web. You always show up at the right events, so I just want to
Well,
give
thank
you
you
that
very
shout out. The panel that I was on was really looking at broadband policy beyond the investments that we're seeing currently, and what at the end of the day is going to be the success that we're actually going to look at and measure from this. What I shared, in comparison to my colleagues, was really around the vision and the aspirations that we have for the FCC National Broadband Plan and what things will get us there. We can focus a lot on the strategies and the programs, and I think there's been great conversation on the Hill here in San Francisco on the variety of programs and strategies, whether it's a best practice program, whether it's revamping the Universal Service Fund, whether it's figuring out what are the best avenues for deployment in communities, wired, wireless, etc. But if we don't have a common goal and vision around where this is going to take the country, then I think we're going to be back in the same spot. If the plan, as well as the investments that we have, do not inform our ability to be a stronger nation globally and be much more competitive than what we are now, a plan that stresses the importance of worker preparedness, where we have workers that are now retrained or trained in a new economy, not the former paradigm of industrialization that we had, but a new paradigm that's moving us into the 22nd century. If our children don't have the right competencies to be successful when compared to our global competitors, and finally, our ability to create an economy which is efficient and energy sensitive, and astute, we've not accomplished the goals intended for broadband acceleration in this country. And so that's pretty much what I shared. And for us to do a deep dive on some of the best practices that are actually happening right now out there that can be replicated and scaled, we recognize that there is an increase in adoption among subgroup or particular communities, and we're doing a better job, but there's still a quarter of people who are not online, and among minorities as well as low-income people, their numbers are stagnant. And so if we're going to move into an information ecosystem, it's very important that we find a way to bring everybody along and to focus our investments in those areas which require the most attention now. But again, I say that those investments now should make us much more flexible, much more competitive, much more meaningful for what we are able to do within our borders tomorrow.
Well, that's a great segue to adoption. Paul Brigner from Verizon, who was on that same panel, he referenced the number that there are 30 million households in the U.S. that have access to high-speed internet, but they choose not to adopt. And I know the Joint Center you mentioned has a report coming out. I'm going to try to get this right. The National Minority
Broadband Adoption Study.
Outstanding. So you're obviously, the Joint Center is focused on this issue. What can we do to tackle this adoption challenge?
Well, we're going to find out in this survey. We worked closely in consultation with Pew to, hear from Lee Rainey and others, John Horrigan, who was formerly with Pew, to really get an understanding of their data. And by all occasions, the Pew American Internet Life Project is the gospel for what we know around adoption. And so we look at what we're doing as an extension of understanding subgroups that are not getting online. African Americans, for example, have been only experienced a 2% increase in broadband adoption in the last 2 years. They've been statistically insignificant. It's a stagnant group, though we're finding and hearing that home broadband adoption rates may have increased since the last Pew study. For the most part, they're behind. Other households where education is fair, etc., we're seeing similar trends in their ability to get online. Price continues to be a relevant point of entry for people. It's a barrier. If you're choosing between diapers for your children, food on your table, and broadband, you and I know the obvious answer. Where we want to go in the study and what we want to find out is a little bit more about those barriers. Are they structural barriers? Are they individual consumption barriers? Are they barriers that someone else created from their neighborhood or from an external factor that has pretty much influenced a decision? We also want to find out about the statistic of mobile wireless use. The statistic is out there that more African Americans and Latinos use wireless technology. They're carrying, quote unquote, a computer in their pocket. Some of the areas of interest for us is to what extent are many of those people using broadband-enabled applications on their cell phones? Is there something to this that we have to look at the innovation behind mobile technology, open up more spectrum so that we can run applications, create better smartphones, more reasonably priced smartphones for low-income people to participate? It's not just about talking, but your child's ability to do their homework, your ability to apply for health care, etc.
Right.
And then finally, the thing that we're really interested in is the future utility of the internet. We ask a lot of questions in our survey, the extent to which people would engage in many of the things that many of us extrapolate about, right? We think in this universe, in these conversations, what we know low-income people will do. There's not been a strong oversampling of minorities and low adopters that actually tell us if our assertions and assumptions are true. So we hope to see in this sample much more clarity and gain much more clarity around the uses and the future uses among these populations.
Great. Well, finally, Nicole, and then we're going to let you go. In addition to the National Broadband Plan, the FCC also has an NPRM out right now on net neutrality, and we just wrapped up a conversation here that sort of got to that, global internet policy and what role it plays. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, is that noise around more important issues like adoption and increased access, or is it something that people should really be paying attention to?
For the minority community, and particularly for the Joint Center, as a policy institute, we take a stand where we are charged with collecting the right amount of research to better inform the people who follow our work on its impact. We've not at this point taken a deep dive into the net neutrality issues because our primary focus has been on adoption, and we see that to be an overarching barrier, even if the net is open, to people engaging and participating at the optimal level. So actually, I'll just leave it at that. That really, for right now, until the issues with adoption, particularly those issues around availability, affordability, accessibility, are addressed, that some of these other points that we're talking about may not have the relevancy that we're seeing. At the end of the day, we're concerned at the Joint Center that we produce a body of work that helps people understand whether it's an issue of net neutrality, broadband adoption, some of the other public notices that have come out from the FCC, investments made by NTIA and our US. Is it changing the landscape of communities that have been in distress, citizens that have been limited in their access to opportunity, and improving the quality of life for all citizens that are in need of technology to solve a social problem? If we can get to those 3 points, I think many of the things that we're currently addressing on the Hill in terms of regulation will either answer those or there'll be a moot point.
Right, great. Well, it's been a long day here at day 2 of Supernova.
Day 2 of Supernova.
So we really appreciate you spending some time with us.
Thank you. It's been a great conversation, very informative. We are glad to be here.
Great. Thanks, Nicole.
Thank you.